The top story this hour: Ethiopian government says the humanitarian assistance in Tigray needs further concerted action. Office of the Prime Minister blamed belligerent groups for an orchestrated attack against Ethiopia. And Development Bank says COVID-19 pandemic affected its ambitious projects across Africa. Hello, this is Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. Ethiopian government says the humanitarian assistance in Tigray has been commendable but needs further concerted action. The Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs discussed with the diplomatic community based in Addis Ababa concerning the humanitarian situation in Tigray. During the discussion, it was disclosed that a complete withdrawal of Eritrean troops will happen soon. Sintayo Tamrat reports.
Ethiopian Ministry of Foreign Affairs hosted a discussion platform that brought together the diplomatic community and members of the international charity organizations based in Addis. During the event, Ethiopian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Demeke Mekonnen said there is an all-inclusive commendable progress on the ground in Tigray, but still there are challenges that need further attention and action, he pointed out.
There is visible and commendable progress in Tigray, though there are really very challenging and serious situations there in different thematic areas, be it on agriculture, on humanitarian support, on health, education, on water, and the maintenance of infrastructures and the like. So that's really very promising and commendable progress. We have to establish that fact.
Appreciating the progress with the overall situation in Tigray, charity organizations have raised issues related to visa and communication tools. Government officials responded to their concerns, underscoring access is currently not the dominant issue in Tigray.
You've been able to give us some detail that we haven't been able to access recently, so it's good to have up-to-date data as always.
Humanitarian non-governmental organizations should be granted work visas. It was related to this issue before, for a minimum of 6 months for expatriate staff. We call on the federal government to implement a transparent and streamlined clearance process for the import and use of emergency communication and protection equipment.
To really reinforce the message of humanitarian access to all areas has to be facilitated immediately. We recognize the efforts taken by the Ethiopian government in this respect.
Currently, the access issue is not really the dominant discourse and the actual phenomena. In Tigray is open. In some pocket areas, the checkpoints are important. That is to the safety of the aid workers, to our citizens. We try to look to address the outstanding points from the partner side. We try to address most of these issues, and we are committed to address the rest, and we have to be clear. As per our regulations and guidelines, some issues may not be accepted because we have to abide with the existing laws and rules.
On this Tambian area, there are some combat activities. So if we allow aid workers to that area, they can be caught under the crossfires. So there might be some damage on the aid workers. So what we make is just to make some restrictions on some places, like I said, in Tambian and in the southwestern part of Tigray, especially in west of Maicho, in areas of Bora and Dela.
And concerning the communication material in the visa, we strictly see the contribution and the volume of work the organizations are doing. So with that, will try to handle all those, the concerns. There are agencies, I'm afraid, that who bring those communication materials a year ago and asking for a confirmation, a clearance. I don't think this is possible in other places.
A complete withdrawal of Eritrean troops will come soon, it was noted.
As to the Eritrean troops, as the Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned, they are withdrawing the troops from Ethiopia. We are making some arrangement as to how they peacefully withdraw their armies. So this will be completed probably within a very short time.
Demeka appreciated international relief organizations for their continuous humanitarian support to Tigray. He consequently called on them to scale up their support so as to address the humanitarian need in Tigray and beyond.
Office of the Prime Minister Thursday announced that Ethiopia is under an orchestrated attack from belligerent groups in and outside to dismantle government order. In a joint press briefing the office gave with the Federal Attorney General, Press Secretary Bilene Siyum pointed out that organized campaigns against the government have played their part to baffle the international community. Attorney General Gideon Timotheus, for his part, disclosed that more than 50 Ethiopian soldiers who are allegedly involved in sexual violence and humanitarian rights violations have been apprehended. We have more in this story. Office of the Prime Minister Thursday hosted a press briefing amidst continuous international pressures that emanated from the situation in the state of Tigray. In her remarks on the briefing, Press Secretary Bilene Siyum said her government is under attack.
Ethiopia is witnessing an orchestrated attack that is condescending in nature, often patronizing in tone, belligerent in approach, and destructive in outcome. It is disingenuous to hijack the suffering of ordinary citizens for other goals.
Bilene underlined that reproaching the government won't help the effort to rehabilitate Tigray.
Ethiopia has also shown readiness and an open will to positively and constructively engage with all partners, local and international. However, demonizing a sitting prime minister and chastising the government for reversing state collapse triggered by a criminal enterprise, instead of extending further support and reinforcement to rehabilitate the Tigray region, is unproductive and not constructive.
As widespread sexual violence allegations in the state of Tigray surfaced in international media, Attorney General Gideon Timotheus disclosed that the government has arrested more than 50 Ethiopian soldiers for alleged sexual violence and human rights violations.
The military police have conducted their own investigation, and so far they have pressed charges against 28 soldiers who have been suspected of killing civilians in situations where there are no military necessity. The trials of these suspects are underway, and the verdicts are expected to be handed down shortly. Furthermore, the military prosecutors have also pressed charges against 25 soldiers who have been suspected of committing acts of sexual violence and rape. The trials of these suspects are also underway. So far, there have been 4 convictions, and there are also several other investigations that are underway.
Gideon also said that the TPLF have caused massive human and material destructions. Regarding alleged mass killings in Maikadra and Aksum, the Attorney General had this to say.
The first report of major crimes and atrocities to emerge in the Tigray regional state concerned the killing of several hundreds of civilians in the town and around the town of Maikadra. The investigation team has ascertained that more than 200 individuals have been killed and several victims have sustained severe and serious injuries. The investigation team has identified around 200 individuals who are believed to have taken part in the commission of these crimes. While most of the suspects are believed to have fled to Sudan, around 23 suspects have been apprehended and charges have been pressed against the suspects at the Federal High Court, and their trial is already underway. Report of major crimes and atrocities concerned incidents in the city of Aksum. A federal investigation team composed of the federal police and federal prosecutors is currently investigating these incidents that have primarily taken place between the 19th and the 28th of November. This is still an ongoing investigation which we are trying to finalize, and these are our major findings so far.
The Attorney General also indicated that the more than 10,000 hardened criminals who were jailed in prisons of the city of Mekelle and later released by the retreating TPLF clique have also involved in the alleged sexual violence. Asked about the withdrawal of Eritrean troops from Tigray, Press Secretary Bilene Siyum confirmed that their withdrawal is already commenced. Renowned historian Abebaw Ayale slammed the current U.S. measures to impose visa restrictions and economic sanctions against Ethiopia. In an exclusive interview with TV English, he suggested the U.S. government to reconsider and reevaluate its latest statements on Ethiopia's domestic affairs. Alola Taklamariam reports.
Large number of Ethiopians are increasingly voicing against the latest U.S. government's measures which impose visa restrictions on Ethiopian government officials. Scholars and government officials have joined the pressure group against the U.S. government's decisions on Ethiopia's domestic affairs. Assistant Professor Abebaw Ayale is among the Ethiopian scholars who boldly slammed the U.S.-led pressure over Ethiopia.
The kind of restriction and economic sanction that they wanted to implement in Ethiopia is not appropriate at all. So what would be better is to negotiate and then also to find out the reality on ground and then to evaluate what the TPLF did and in what ways the Ethiopian government responded, and then based on that to forge the way out of the current situation, and then also to continue to cooperate at a regional level for the peace and security of the Horn of Africa. And America also should give respect to what Ethiopia has been doing for the peace and security of the region, not only East Africa and the Horn of Africa, but also for West Africa. So we have been together in Korea in the 1960s. So we have a lot of experience in terms of working together. So they should not be misled by what lobbyists say, and then also what some paid diplomats also say about the present Ethiopian government and Abiy's administration.
Abebaw further explained the international community's misperception towards the fact on the ground in Tigray in connection to human rights violations, mentioning convicted criminals who have been released by TPLF to be accountable for their crimes and atrocities.
So the American visa restriction and then also other forms of economic sanctions which they are saying to implement in Ethiopia unless conditions improve in Tigray. For me and then also for any reasonable person, for any reasonably rational person, comes from two things which are completely wrong. So the first, as I told you, is that what is the source of information that they got about the humanitarian crisis in Tigray? So most of the information is an information that was fed by those people who are affiliated to TPLF leadership, and these people has misinformed the international media, whatever media, Middle Eastern medias, Western medias, or whatever. And then the second thing, one should also ask that who was responsible for the violation of human rights in Tigray first. When in October 2020, when the crisis started in northern Ethiopia and when the Ethiopian government was forced to take a law enforcement action, what the TPLF did was they released convicted criminals. These convicted criminals were the first and the most responsible ones for the violation of human rights.
He also appreciated Ethiopians in home and abroad for voicing their national agenda in different aspects.
It should be appreciated because this is a matter of sovereignty. You see, sovereignty in the sense that why did we deserve this one? You know, a sovereign country, a sovereign government should take action on forces that destabilize the country. So the TPLF for several years was destabilizing the country, and then very recently they have been doing all in their capacity to dismember the nation. And then also they have openly declared that they did not belong to the Ethiopian nation in many ways.
The US and its allies could better work for a common solution. For Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan strike a win-win deal on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This remark came from Khalifat Aye Mohammed, who has been working to promote public diplomacy over the years. Similarly, activist Mesfin Haile also opposed Western powers for they try to twist arms of the Ethiopian government. Jerusalem Bazaar presents the story as follows.
Ethiopia is on the way to commence the second filling of the GERD in the upcoming rainy season, while Egypt and Sudan insisted on a legally binding agreement. On the other hand, Western powers are trying to twist the arms of the Ethiopian government, undermining Ethiopia's right to use the Nile River. In his exclusive interview with ETV English, Mesfin Haile, who has been working to promote democracy all over the state in the US, said historical enemies of Ethiopia are desirous to back TPLF in power, exerting pressure on the incumbent.
All the enemies of Ethiopia, historical enemies of Ethiopia, trying to undermine Ethiopia, trying to undermine the Nile Dam, which is being built right now. And the Egyptian government is doing all diplomatic pressure, and European Union plus the US government is trying to promote tyranny in the way that they are supporting TPLF. TPLF is dead. TPLF was not resurrected no matter what they do. Ethiopia has never been colonized, will never be colonized, and will not be undermined by any other nation. That's what they don't realize.
However, their intervention and pressure have no legal ground, and it's against the UN Charter and international laws, Khalifat Aye Mohammed said.
The international community is trying to put pressure on Ethiopia. It's something that's not right. It's also interfering the international laws, the UN Charter, you name it, because this is basically interfering in the internal affair of a sovereign nation. I mean, we're in the 21st century. Ethiopia have never been colonized, and we cannot really accept the fact that they are trying to impose a new form of colonization, I would say it. And this is something which is actually against the law. And I believe that doing that and talking or claiming that Ethiopia is trying to monopolize the Nile River is something that's not right. And I really feel sorry that there are, international community who are trying to exert pressure on Ethiopia. But I would say, and I believe that it would be better if the international community tried their best to have a common solution for all the three parties, for Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt.
The activists call Africans to be united and to find solutions for their problems by their own.
About 60% of the Ethiopian population don't have electricity, while 100% of Egypt is electrified by using our own resource, our own water. That's so unfair. And Ethiopia are really, they are not, they don't even say let's use the whole water. And we can't even do that if we want to. What we are doing is let's have fair share. I mean, right now, 75% of the Nile water is being used by Egypt, 25% is used by Sudan. Ethiopia has zero, where we are the source of the Nile. That's so annoying, and that's unfair, and no one will stop us from completing the dam, electrifying our country, promoting democracy, so we don't have to be depending on any other nation. We are grateful for those who are helping to promote democracy. But when they come against our sovereignty, nothing is worth our sovereignty. We'll not accept any kind of, we don't sell our country for any kind of support.
My message for Sudan, Egypt, and basically all the African nation is basically to focus and to be stick with our principles, which is to find an African solution for African problems. The problem being poverty, not the GERD, because I feel like the GERD is a great opportunity for the renaissance of the African nation. So my advice for them would be, we're in the 21st century, so it doesn't really make sense to implement the colonial treaty. I would suggest them to look at the common benefit or the shared benefits that they can get from the GERD and from different projects that the African nation is trying to bring. Because as African nations, I feel like we have an obligation to support each other instead of tearing each other up.
Since day one of the commencement of the construction of the dam, Egypt has been trying its level best to stop Ethiopia from constructing GERD, and it has been repeatedly withdrawn from the GERD trilateral talks among the three countries. With all these challenges, the overall construction of GERD has reached over 80%.
Ethiopian investors called on citizens to scale up contribution so as to finalize GERD and other mega projects of the nation. The investors pledged to support the ongoing sweeping reforms of the incumbent government. Kasan Janesmo.
Ethiopian investors who were approached by Ethiopian news agency appreciated the ongoing multi-factor sweeping reforms of the nation. The investors underscored that Ethiopia has reached a critical juncture of time which needs the unity of its people more than ever before. Accordingly, they called on all Ethiopians to stand in unison so as to support the ongoing multi-sector development works of the nation.
Our unity matters. We should stand through harmony as there might be various problems among us. The time is now for Ethiopians to stand together and support the country and fulfill their civic duty. We have one country which we share, and the government, political parties and the people should work together to ensure the survival of our beloved country.
The ongoing development works, including the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, are natural resources that will ensure Ethiopia's resurgence, is said, adding that all should work hard to complete the projects. Another investor, Theodros Yilma, on his part said, the current challenges facing Ethiopia will help accelerate its efforts to become self-sufficient. He mentioned that the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, one of the largest projects in Africa, is one of the projects that presently showing the nation can stand on its own capacity.
With this in mind, there is nothing we can't do if we are determined to complete other development projects with our capacity and get out of the spirit of aid. Ethiopia has been experiencing economic growth despite many challenges over the past few years.
As a result, he said there is still nothing more important than the survival of the nation. Another investor, discussed on his part, stated that there are many indications that if Ethiopians stand together, there are no obstacles to achieving many rigorous exertions.
If everyone strives to make the unsurpassed use of resources, labor and knowledge in each area, it will be possible to achieve remarkable results.
In particular, he emphasized that it was high time that Ethiopians only through unison can cope with the pressures facing both at home and abroad.
የፓርኩ ከፍተኛ ቦታ ዶዶ ተራራ የሚባል ቦታ አለ። እሱ ነው የፓርኩ ከፍታ ቦታ።
ከሌላው በጣም የተለየ ቦታ ነው። አካባቢውም በጣም ቀዝቀዝ ያለ ቦታ ነው። እንደገናም ደግሞ ያሉት ሪሶርሶች በበቂ ሁኔታ የሚታዩበት የዶዶ ጋራን በፊት ለፊቱ የሚታይ ዋናው የቱሪስት መስህብ ተብሎ የሚጠራው በፊት ለፊቱ የሚታይ ቦታ ነውና
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. Science and Higher Education Minister Samuel Orkato, along with his team, recently conferred with U.S. Ambassador to Ethiopia Gita Passi and embassy colleagues on ways of enhancing collaboration in higher education. According to U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia, the two sides virtually reviewed the strong partnership existed between the two countries in higher education. During the occasion, Science and Higher Education Minister Samuel Urkato highlighted his ministry's priority for homegrown collaborative PhD programs. U.S. invests close to $20 million annually to support basic and higher education across Ethiopia since 2018. Ambassador Driba Kuma conferred with Denmark's acting director for the Africa Policy and Development Department at Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs to Krarup Pedersen. The two have had candid discussions on national and regional issues of utmost importance, notably on humanitarian relief effort in the Tigray region, the upcoming general election in Ethiopia, and the peace and security situation in the Horn of Africa. Ambassador Driba explained that the government of Ethiopia has continued upholding its commitment to deliver the much-needed humanitarian assistance to its citizens in Tigray, and as such it has delivered humanitarian support to 4.3 million beneficiaries in the second and third rounds. Ethiopia always stands ready to play its part in the effort to peacefully resolving disputes in the region, notably on the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and the Ethiopia-Sudan border conflict. The government of Finland will continue to further strengthen its development cooperation and support to Ethiopia, Finland Ambassador to Ethiopia Outi Holopainen said. The ambassador stated that Ethiopia is Finland's biggest cooperation partner in Africa. Finland's development cooperation with Ethiopia will continue even amidst challenges in the country, Outi reassured. The main aim of Finland's support and cooperation with Ethiopia is to help the country achieve the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. The Finnish government has been engaged in a joint water sector project with the Ethiopian government for over a decade. This is Addis News Hour. The cost of COVID-19 can be counted not only in the millions of deaths across the world, but also the financial losses incurred because of the disruptions and restrictions imposed to prevent the spread of the virus. Projects were halted, investors frustrated, and projections of growth revised. The world literally shut down to deal with the threat of infection and death. Africa News has talked to Admasu Tadessa, President and Group Managing Director of Eastern and Southern Africa Trade and Development Bank, and Emmanuel Jorge presents the story as follows.
Africa News has talked to the President and Group Managing Director of the Eastern and Southern African Trade and Development Bank, Mr. Admasu Tadessa, who has championed Pan-African financing of major infrastructure projects. He reiterates the COVID-19 pandemic has affected Eastern and Southern African Trade and Development Bank's role in powering ambitious projects across the continent. Some major deals were halted, delayed or cancelled as a result of pandemic-related losses. New strategies were needed.
We, of course, have a particular mandate to support trade. And as you would know, the lockdowns and the closures of borders have, of course, affected trade. So growth has been muted. We've not seen the same level of demand coming through for our trade finance services as we have in the past. We do a fair amount of infrastructure financing and project finance as well. We've attracted in the various countries that we work in where we don't have specific presence, and then of course going digital as far as we could.
He further highlighted the disparity in the allocation of the stimulus package was another major setback that has dragged down many African economies.
I think the stimulus packages in the different parts of the world have really helped keep the overall economic order, fairly favorable to a rebound. But of course, we know that our part of Africa has not had anywhere close to the kind of stimulus packages that the G7 countries have enjoyed. Trillions of dollars being spoken about every so many months, and if not just one package, multiple packages.
In regards to impact investing and how it has become more important at project financing allocations of funds, Tadessa revealed how other subsidiary companies like insurance firms help boost finance to these major league stakeholders.
We have a good number of pension funds, insurance companies, reinsurance companies investing in our capital, allowing us now to, of course, intermediate that, leverage that with debt and provide the financing, the development financing and the trade financing.
TDB has been major sponsor and supporter of the pension funds and Alternative Investments Africa since its inception.
Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. Ethiopian government says the humanitarian assistance in Tigray needs further concerted action. Office of the Prime Minister blamed belligerent groups for an orchestrated attack against Ethiopia. And Development Bank says COVID-19 pandemic affected its ambitious projects across Africa. Well, that's it for the news. For me, Solomon Danya, and the rest of the English team here in the studio. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.